The mining station floated quietly in space, orbiting a distant planet called Kepler 442b. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the control room, watching the screens that showed the endless darkness outside. He had been running the station for 3 years now. It was boring work most days, but it paid well, and the crew of 47 people had become like family to him. Jake was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. His cup dropped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Lieutenant Amy Collins spun around in her chair, her face going pale as she looked at her screen. "Sir, we have incoming ships. 3 of them. They just appeared out of nowhere." Jake rushed to her station and looked at the display. 3 massive warships hung in space, their dark hulls covered in strange symbols. He had never seen ships like these before, but he knew what they were. Vraxian, the aliens who claimed this entire region of space belonged to them. "Are they hailing us?" Jake asked, already knowing the answer. "No, sir. Their weapons are powering up." Jake felt his heart pounding in his chest. The mining station had no weapons. They had a few shuttles for emergency evacuation, but those old ships could never outrun the alien warships. He looked around the control room at his crew, young men and women who had signed up for a boring mining job, not a battle. "How long until they fire?" he asked quietly. "Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less." Jake made his decision in seconds. "Amy, send out a distress call. Use every frequency we have. Tell anyone listening that we're under attack and we need help." Amy's fingers moved across her controls. "Sir, the nearest Earth military ship is 6 days away." "We don't have 6 hours." "I know. Send it anyway." Amy nodded and started typing. The message was simple and short. "This is mining station Kepler 442b. We are under attack by Vraxian warships. 47 people on board. Requesting immediate assistance. Please help us." The message went out into space, traveling at the speed of light in all directions. Jake watched it go, knowing it was probably useless, but he had to try. He owed his crew that much. On the lead Vraxian warship, Commander Thexalar watched the human station with cold eyes. These humans had built their little mining operation in space that belonged to the Vraxian Dominion. That was not acceptable. The punishment was always the same: destruction. Thexalar was about to give the order to fire when his officer spoke up. "Commander, the humans are broadcasting a distress call. It's going out on every frequency, including some very old emergency channels. So they scream before they die," Thexalar said. "That changes nothing." Prepare to fire, but something made him hesitate. The distress call wasn't just going to military ships. It was going everywhere. To every human ship, every station, every colony within range. The humans were screaming as loud as they could, telling everyone what was happening. "Interesting," Thexalar muttered. "They want the whole galaxy to watch them die." What Thexalar didn't understand was something important about humans. They were weak compared to most alien species. Their ships were slower. Their weapons were less powerful. Their bodies were soft and easily damaged. But humans had one quality that made them different from every other species in the galaxy. When one human was in danger, other humans came running. Always. 3 star systems away, Captain Lisa Grant was hauling cargo in her ship, the Destiny's Run. Her vessel was old and slow, designed to carry supplies from one planet to another. She had a crew of 12 people, none of them soldiers. They were just working folks trying to make a living in space. When the distress call came through, Lisa was eating lunch in the mess hall. The message played over the ship's speakers and everyone stopped eating. 47 people, under attack, requesting help. Lisa stood up and walked to the bridge. Her crew followed her without being asked. She sat down in the captain's chair and pulled up the navigation computer. The mining station was 3 star systems away. If she pushed her engines to maximum, she could get there in about 4 hours. But that would burn fuel she couldn't afford to replace, and her ship had no weapons at all. "Change course," Lisa said. "Take us to those coordinates. Maximum speed." Her first officer, a man named Chris Donovan, stared at her. "Captain, we're a cargo ship. We can't fight Vraxian warships." "I know that, Chris. So what are we going to do when we get there?" Lisa looked at him steadily. "I don't know yet. But there are 47 people about to die, and nobody else is close enough to help them. So we're going." Chris nodded slowly.
He had served with Lisa for 5 years.
He knew that look in her eyes. There was no point arguing. "Yes, Captain. Setting course now." Across multiple star systems, the same scene was playing out on dozens of ships. The colony transport New Horizon was carrying 2,000 civilians to a new settlement. Captain Peter Hughes heard the distress call and immediately changed course, ignoring the angry protests from the colonial administrator. The medical ship Mercy, clearly marked with red crosses, turned toward the mining station. The survey vessel Pathfinder abandoned its mission studying a distant asteroid field. Even a private luxury yacht called Starlight Express, owned by a wealthy businessman, changed direction and headed toward Kepler 442b. None of these ships were warships. None of them had real weapons. Most of them were slower than the Vraxian cruisers. But they all had one thing in common. They were human ships and there were humans in danger. Back on the mining station, Jake gathered his crew in the main assembly room. They all looked scared, but they were trying to hide it. Jake felt a surge of pride looking at them. These were good people. They deserved better than this. "Listen up," Jake said. "I'm not going to lie to you. We're in serious trouble. Those Vraxian ships out there can destroy us anytime they want. Help is too far away. We sent out the distress call, but I don't know if anyone received it or if anyone is coming." "So what do we do?" someone asked. Jake took a deep breath. "We prepare to evacuate if we get the chance. We gather the essential equipment, and we don't give up. Not until the last second. We're humans. We don't quit." The crew nodded. Some of them were crying, but they all got to work. They packed emergency supplies. They prepared the evacuation shuttles, even though those shuttles probably couldn't escape. They did what humans always did when faced with impossible odds. They kept trying. On the Vraxian flagship, Thexalar was growing impatient. He had given his crew enough time to prepare. Now it was time to finish this. His finger moved toward the firing control. Then his sensor officer shouted, "Commander! We have a new ship entering the system. It's human." Thexalar looked at his screen. A single cargo ship had dropped out of faster-than-light travel and was heading straight toward them. It was tiny compared to his warships. It had no visible weapons, and it was coming right at them. What is that fool doing? Thexalar wondered aloud. Captain Lisa Grant stared at the view screen as her ship came out of faster-than-light travel. The mining station was there, looking small and helpless. Around it, 3 enormous Vraxian warships waited like sharks circling prey. Lisa had seen pictures of Vraxian cruisers before, but seeing them in person was terrifying. Each one was 10 times the size of her cargo ship. Chris stood next to her, his face pale. "Captain, those ships could destroy us with one shot." "What's the plan?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. She was trying to think, but her mind kept showing her images of those warships blowing her ship apart. Then she remembered something her father had told her when she was young. "Sometimes the only weapon you have is words. Use them well." "Open a channel to the Vraxian ships," Lisa said. "You want to talk to them?" "Yes, now, please." Chris pressed some buttons and a communication channel opened. Lisa cleared her throat and spoke in her strongest voice. "Vraxian vessels, this is Captain Lisa Grant of the Earth cargo ship Destiny's Run. You need to leave this system immediately. You are ordered to withdraw." There was silence for several seconds. Then a deep voice responded, speaking English with a strange accent. "Human vessel, you appear to be unarmed. Why do you give orders to the Vraxian Dominion? On what authority?" Lisa took a deep breath. "On the authority of 47 human beings who need protection, and on the authority of the 183 other human ships that are coming here right now." Another pause. "You are lying, human. There are no other ships. Check your sensors, Commander." On the Vraxian flagship, Thexalar gestured angrily at his sensor officer. "Well, are there other ships coming?" The officer worked frantically at his controls, expanding the sensor range. His eyes grew wide. "Commander, I'm detecting hyperspace signatures. Many of them. Ships are entering the system. I count 17 so far. No, wait, 29. The number keeps growing. Combat vessels?" "No, sir. I see cargo haulers, transports, mining ships. Even what looks like a passenger yacht. But they're all heading here. All of them." Thexalar felt something he rarely experienced. Confusion. Why would they send civilian ships to a battle? His tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, perhaps they don't understand the danger. Should we warn them?" "Warn them?" Thexalar laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." He opened the channel to the cargo ship again. Lisa's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired and scared, but her jaw was set with determination. "Captain Grant, explain this to me. These ships arriving are not military vessels. They cannot fight us. What do you hope to accomplish?" "We're not here to fight you, Commander," Lisa said. We're here to evacuate that mining station. You can let us do it peacefully, or you can start shooting. But if you start shooting, you'll have to destroy all of us. And the distress call is still broadcasting. More ships will keep coming. They'll come until you leave or until you've killed every human who heard that call. Your choice. Texalar stared at the screen. Was this human serious? Did she really think he wouldn't fire on civilian ships? But as he looked at his sensor display, showing more and more human vessels arriving, he began to understand something disturbing. These humans actually would keep coming. They would sacrifice themselves for strangers on a mining station. The next ship to arrive was the colony transport New Horizon. Captain Peter Hughes brought his massive vessel between the mining station and the nearest Vraxian warship. His ship was huge, designed to carry 2,000 colonists to new worlds. It wasn't fast and it had no weapons, but it was big enough to block the line of fire. New Horizon to Destiny's Run. Peter's voice came over the radio. We're in position, Lisa. Nobody's shooting at that station unless they go through us first. On the mining station, Jake and his crew watched their screens in amazement. The cargo ship had arrived first, then the colony transport. Now more ships were appearing every few minutes. A medical frigate dropped out of hyperspace, its hull painted white with red crosses. Then came a mining ship called Iron Lady, battered and old but still flying. A survey vessel named Pathfinder took up position near the station. Amy was crying as she watched. Sir, they're actually coming. All of them. They're coming to save us. Jake felt his own eyes getting wet. How many ships now? 37, sir. And more arriving every minute. The ships were forming a protective barrier around the mining station, not in any military formation, just clustering around it, putting their own hulls between the station and the Vraxian warships. It was chaos from a tactical perspective, but it was also the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. One of the arriving ships was the luxury yacht Starlight Express. It was a small, elegant vessel designed for wealthy passengers who wanted to travel in comfort. The owner, a businessman named George Palmer, had been taking his family on vacation when he heard the distress call. He hadn't hesitated. He told his pilot to change course immediately. Now his yacht floated near the mining station, surrounded by cargo ships and transports. His wife, Helen, stood next to him, holding their daughter Katie's hand. Katie was only 8 years old and she was scared but trying to be brave. "Daddy, why did we come here?" Katie asked. "Those big alien ships might hurt us." George knelt down to look his daughter in the eyes. "Sweetheart, there are people on that station who need help. We had to come, but we don't know them. That doesn't matter. They're human, just like us. We don't leave each other behind. Ever." Helen squeezed his shoulder. She was scared too, but she was proud of her husband. This was why she had married him. He was a good man who did the right thing, even when it was dangerous. On the Vraxian flagship, Texalar was watching his tactical display with growing alarm. The number of human ships had reached 52, then 67, then 89. They kept coming, appearing out of hyperspace like insects swarming to protect their nest. "Sir, what are your orders?" his weapons officer asked nervously. Texalar didn't answer immediately. He was thinking. His mission was clear. Destroy the human mining station. But his mission orders had been written assuming he would face human military vessels. Nobody had considered what to do if the humans sent their civilians to form a human shield. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from many of the human vessels," the communications officer reported. "They're broadcasting their passenger manifests. Names, ages, occupations of everyone on board. Why would they do that? I believe they want us to see them as individuals, sir, not just targets. One of the transports has 300 children on board. They're listing every child's name and age." Texalar felt anger rising in his chest. These clever humans were making this personal. They were putting faces and names to the people he would have to kill. It was a psychological tactic and it was working. His tactical officer spoke quietly. "Commander, if we fire on the mining station now, we will have to destroy at least 30 civilian vessels to get a clear shot. Estimated casualties would be 7,000 to 8,000 humans, many of them children." "I understand the numbers," Texalar snapped. "Sir, the Galactic Council is monitoring this situation. If we massacre civilians who are trying to evacuate their own people, every species in the Council will turn against us." Texalar knew this was true. The Vraxian Dominion was powerful, but they couldn't fight the entire Galactic Council, and the Council had strict rules about targeting civilians. If he opened fire now, it would be seen as a war crime. But if he backed down, he would look weak. The Dominion didn't tolerate weakness. The standoff continued for 2 more hours. During that time, the number of human ships in the system climbed past 100. They came from everywhere. Cargo haulers that should have been delivering supplies to distant colonies. Transport ships that had been carrying passengers to new homes. Mining vessels that had abandoned their work. Even a few private ships owned by wealthy individuals who had heard the call and decided to respond. Each ship that arrived positioned itself somewhere around the mining station. There was no coordination, no military planning. The ships just came and found a spot, adding their presence to the growing wall of human vessels. It looked like chaos to Thexalar, but there was something deeply unsettling about it. These humans weren't following orders. They were choosing to be here, on one of the cargo ships. A woman named Rachel Cooper was explaining the situation to her teenage son Danny. They had been hauling construction equipment when the distress call arrived, and Rachel had immediately changed course. Danny had been scared at first, but now he was curious. "Mom, I don't understand. Why are all these ships here? We're not soldiers." Rachel looked at her son and tried to find the right words. "No, we're not soldiers. But there are people on that station who need help. If we don't help them, who will? But Mom, those alien ships could kill us all." "Yes, they could. But I need you to understand something important, Danny. Being human means more than just surviving. It means taking care of each other. All the people on these ships, we all heard the same call for help. And we all made the same choice. We chose to come." Danny thought about this. "What if the aliens do start shooting? Then we'll face it together. Just like humans always have. We don't abandon our own, son. Not ever." In the control room of the mining station, Jake was organizing his crew for possible evacuation. They had packed emergency supplies and prepared the station's small shuttles. But Jake was also watching the growing fleet of ships outside with wonder. The number had reached 112 vessels. The total number of humans who had responded to help them was now over 47,000 people. Amy came over to him, holding a tablet computer. "Sir, I've been reading some of the transmissions between the rescue ships. People are talking to each other, coordinating positions, sharing fuel and supplies. They're organizing themselves without any central command. That's because they don't need commanders to tell them what to do," Jake said quietly. "They know why they're here." Lieutenant Ben Hayes, the station's engineer, joined them. "Commander, I've been thinking about something. Why haven't the Vraxians fired yet? They could have destroyed us hours ago." Jake looked at the tactical display showing all the human ships. "Because we changed the equation. It's one thing to destroy a military target. It's something completely different to massacre thousands of civilians who are just trying to help their own people. The Vraxians know the whole galaxy is watching now. So we're holding them hostage with our own people?" Ben asked. "No," Jake said firmly. "Nobody asked these people to come. They chose to come on their own. That's what makes this different. This isn't a military strategy. This is just humans being human." On the Vraxian flagship, Thexalar was in an emergency conference with his senior officers. They were gathered around a holographic display, showing the tactical situation. The image was dominated by over 100 human ships clustered around the mining station. "We have 3 options," the tactical officer said. "First, we can withdraw and report this situation to High Command. Second, we can open fire and destroy all human vessels. Third, we can attempt to negotiate with the humans." Thexalar growled. "The Vraxian Dominion does not negotiate with trespassers. Sir, with respect, this situation has evolved beyond a simple territorial dispute. The Galactic Council has invoked Protocol 7. All military action must cease until diplomatic channels have been explored." Protocol 7? Thexalar felt anger burning in his chest. Protocol 7 was the Council's emergency mediation procedure. It meant the entire galaxy was officially watching and judging their actions. If he ignored it and opened fire, the Dominion would face immediate sanctions from every council member. His communications officer spoke up. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Kelvin Shaw of Earth. He's requesting to speak with you directly." "Put him through." A human face appeared on the display. Ambassador Kelvin Shaw was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked like someone who had seen many difficult negotiations. He spoke calmly and clearly. "Commander Thexalar, I am Kelvin Shaw, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. I want to thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I did not agree to anything, Ambassador. Your species has violated Vraxian space. The penalty is clear. I understand your position, Commander, and I want to be honest with you. I did not order those ships to come here. Earth's government did not send them. Every captain, every crew member, every passenger made their own choice. That's important for you to understand. This isn't a military operation. This is something else. What would you call it then? I would call it humanity, Kelvin said simply. Commander, you've been a soldier for a long time. You understand military tactics, but what's happening here isn't about tactics. It's about a fundamental characteristic of human beings. We cannot abandon each other. It's built into who we are. When one human calls for help, other humans respond. Always. Thexalar stared at the ambassador. That is not logical. Those 47 miners are strangers to most of the people who came here. Why would they risk their lives for strangers? Because they're not strangers, Commander. They're human. That's all that matters to us. This is weakness, Thexalar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Kelvin leaned forward. Commander, you're surrounded by over 100 civilian vessels carrying tens of thousands of people who voluntarily put themselves in danger. Can your military force civilians to do that? Can any military force? This isn't weakness. This is the strongest thing about humanity. We care about each other more than we care about our own safety. The transmission ended and Thexalar sat in silence. His officers waited for him to speak. Finally, he turned to his tactical officer. Give me an honest assessment. If we open fire on these vessels, what will happen politically? The tactical officer pulled up data on his console. The Galactic Council will impose immediate sanctions. We will lose trading rights with at least 30 species. Our diplomatic reputation will be severely damaged, and the humans will likely declare war on the Dominion. Could we win such a war? Eventually, yes. Human military forces are inferior to ours in most ways. But Commander, this incident has shown us something. The humans don't fight like other species. They don't follow normal military logic. If we destroy these civilians, every human in the galaxy will see it as murder. They will never forget. They will never forgive. The war might last decades. Thexalar closed his eyes. In his long military career, he had won 17 major battles. He had destroyed enemy fleets and conquered hostile worlds. But he had always been fighting other military forces, not civilians who refused to move. This was different. These humans weren't fighting him. They were simply standing in his way and daring him to commit an atrocity to move them. It was, he had to admit, brilliant in its simplicity. They had transformed a military confrontation into a moral test. And Thexalar knew that if he failed that test, the consequences would haunt the Vraxian Dominion for generations. Commander Thexalar made his decision 3 hours after the first human ship arrived. It was not the decision his training had prepared him for, but it was the only logical choice given the circumstances. He opened a communication channel on all frequencies so every ship in the system could hear him. This is Commander Thexalar of the Vraxian Dominion to all human vessels. I am prepared to allow evacuation of the mining station under the following terms. You will have 24 hours to remove all personnel and equipment. You will not return to this system after evacuation is complete. The station itself will be destroyed once everyone has left. These terms cannot be changed. Do you accept? There was a moment of silence. Then Jake Morrison's voice came through from the mining station. We accept your terms, Commander. Thank you for allowing us to live. Do not thank me, human. Your species has proven something today, but I am not certain if it is courage or foolishness. Perhaps it is both. Jake smiled despite the tension. Can't argue with that, Commander. The evacuation began immediately. The human ships moved into organized patterns, taking turns to dock with the mining station. The larger transport vessels could only get close, using their smaller shuttles to ferry people and equipment. The process was complicated, but the human crews worked together smoothly. Lisa Grant brought her cargo ship alongside the station's main docking port. Her crew helped load equipment and supplies, working quickly but carefully. One of the miners, a young woman named Julie Brooks, thanked them as she boarded. You saved our lives, Julie said, her eyes red from crying. You didn't even know us, but you came anyway. Lisa hugged the young woman. That's what humans do, honey. We take care of each other. Similar scenes played out across all the rescue vessels. Strangers met and embraced. People who had never spoken before worked side by side, moving supplies and helping evacuate the station. The colony transport New Horizon took on 63 of the miners, finding space for them among the colonists who were already aboard. Captain Peter Hughes personally greeted each one. "Welcome aboard," he told them. "Sorry about the crowded conditions. We weren't exactly planning for extra passengers." One of the miners, an older man named Frank Rodriguez, shook his hand. "Captain, you brought 2,000 civilians into a war zone to save us. I think we can handle a little crowding." Peter smiled. "Well, when you put it that way." Even the luxury yacht Starlight Express took on 3 miners, giving up the owner's private quarters to make room. George Palmer's daughter Katie gave one of them her stuffed bear. "You look sad," Katie told the miner, a woman named Susan Clark. "My bear always makes me feel better." Susan accepted the gift with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'll take very good care of him." The evacuation took 18 hours instead of 24. The humans worked with focused efficiency, knowing that every minute they took was a minute the Vraxian commander might change his mind. They stripped the station of everything valuable, loaded every piece of equipment they could carry, and made sure every single person was accounted for. Jake Morrison supervised the entire operation from the control room. He checked and double-checked that everyone was off the station. Amy helped him go through the final lists, marking off each person as they boarded the rescue ships. "That's everyone, sir," Amy finally said. "All 47 people are safely aboard the transport vessels." "Then it's time for us to leave too," Jake said. He took one last look around the control room. This had been his home for 3 years. He had celebrated birthdays here, had arguments here, made friends here. Now he was abandoning it to be destroyed by alien warships. But as he looked at the screen showing all the human ships waiting outside, Jake felt something other than sadness. He felt proud. Proud of his crew for staying calm. Proud of the rescue fleet for coming. Proud to be human. "Let's go home," he said. Jake and his remaining crew boarded the last shuttle. As tradition demanded, the station commander was always the last to leave. The shuttle detached from the docking port and flew toward the waiting transport ship Freedom's Call. Captain Peter Hughes was there personally to greet Jake when he came aboard. "Hell of a day, Commander Morrison. Hell of a rescue, Captain Hughes. I still can't believe you all came." Peter looked surprised by the comment. "Where else would we be? There were humans in danger. Of course we came." That simple statement summed up everything that had happened. Of course they came. It was so obvious to Peter that he seemed confused why Jake would even question it. This was just what humans did. On the Vraxian flagship, Thexaler watched as the last human shuttle left the mining station. His weapons officer looked at him, waiting for orders. "All human vessels have cleared the station, sir. Shall we destroy it now?" "Not yet. Give them more distance. I want them well clear before we fire." The human ships began moving away from the station, organizing themselves into a loose convoy. They moved slowly, making sure no one was left behind. Thexalar counted 117 vessels in total. Over 47,000 humans had responded to a distress call from 47 strangers. His tactical officer spoke quietly. "Sir, what are you thinking?" "I am thinking that we did not lose a battle today. We avoided one. There is a difference." "I don't understand, sir." Thexalar gestured at the display showing the human fleet. "Look at them. They are not soldiers. They are merchants and miners and families. But they came here ready to die for each other. What do you call a species that will sacrifice 47,000 lives to save 47 people? Irrational," the tactical officer suggested. "Perhaps, but also dangerous. Very dangerous, not because of their weapons or their ships, but because of their loyalty to each other. How do you defeat an enemy that values staying together more than staying alive?" The tactical officer had no answer. Once the human ships were safely clear, Thexalar gave the order. His 3 warships fired their plasma cannons simultaneously. The mining station exploded in brilliant white light, breaking apart into thousands of pieces that scattered across space. In seconds, it was gone, reduced to glowing debris. Thexalar expected to feel satisfaction. He had completed his mission. The human presence in Vraxian space was eliminated, but instead he felt something else. A nagging sense that he had learned something important about humanity today, something that his military training had not prepared him for. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. Lisa Grant's face appeared on his screen. She looked exhausted but relieved. "Yes, Commander? Captain Grant, you and your people may leave this system. You have kept your word." "I will keep mine," But I want you to understand something. The Vraxian Dominion considers this region of space to be ours. If humans return here, we will respond with force. I understand, Commander, but I want you to understand something too. You saw what happened here today. Over 100 ships came when 47 people called for help. That's not going to change. Wherever humans go in this galaxy, we'll bring that with us. If you attack us, we'll come, all of us. Every time, Thexler studied her face. That is not a military strategy, Captain. That is suicide. Maybe, Lisa admitted, but it's who we are, and it's never going to change. The transmission ended. The human fleet began moving away, jumping to hyperspace one ship at a time. Thexler watched them go, his mind full of troubling thoughts. The humans had won today without firing a single shot. They had forced him to back down using nothing but their presence and their willingness to protect each other. It was not how wars were supposed to work, but it had worked nonetheless. The story of what happened at the mining station spread across human space faster than light itself. Every news network broadcast the details. Every colony talked about it. Every ship carried the tale to new systems. Within days, the entire human population of the galaxy knew about the rescue at Kepler 442b. The 47 miners found themselves treated as heroes, even though most of them insisted they had done nothing except survive. Jake Morrison gave dozens of interviews, always trying to shift attention away from his crew and toward the rescue fleet that had saved them. "We just sent a distress call," Jake told one reporter. "We didn't ask for what happened. We never expected it. But over 100 ships came anyway. Those captains and crews are the real heroes of this story." But the captains and crews of the rescue fleet said the same thing in reverse. Lisa Grant refused to accept any special recognition. "We just did what anyone would do. There were people in danger. We went to help. That's not heroic. That's just being human," Captain Peter Hughes agreed. "I keep hearing people call this brave or special, but I didn't feel brave. I just heard the call and knew I had to respond. My crew felt the same way. So did every other captain who showed up. We weren't trying to be heroes. We were just trying to help." The luxury yacht owner George Palmer gave perhaps the simplest explanation. "My daughter asked me why we went. I told her that humans don't leave each other behind. That's it. That's the whole story." But while humans saw the incident as simply doing what was right, other species in the galaxy had a very different reaction. The Galactic Council held an emergency session to discuss what had happened. Representatives from 47 different species gathered to debate the implications. Ambassador Kelvin Shaw sat in the Earth delegation section, listening to the other species discuss humanity. Some of what they said was flattering. Much of it was concerning. Several species were clearly frightened by what they had witnessed. The Quelix ambassador, speaking through its translator, addressed the council first. "We must acknowledge what we observed at Kepler 442b. The humans mobilized over 100 civilian vessels in response to a distress call. They did this without government orders, without military coordination. Each ship responded independently. This level of social cohesion is unprecedented." The Tarlian representative, a tall creature with multiple eyes, added its perspective. "Our analysts have studied the incident carefully. The humans responded to the distress of strangers. Most of the rescue ships had never met the miners they were saving. Yet they risked their lives anyway. This behavior does not fit any known model of rational self-interest." A third species, the Corvaxi, expressed concern more bluntly. "What we witnessed was disturbing. The humans used their own civilians as shields. They created a situation where military action became politically impossible. This could be weaponized." Kelvin requested permission to speak, and the council granted it. He stood and looked around at the assembled representatives. "I want to address the concerns raised here. Yes, humans responded to the distress call. Yes, many of them were civilians who put themselves at risk. But I need to make something absolutely clear. Earth's government did not order this response. We did not plan it. We could not have stopped it even if we wanted to." The Corvaxi representative interrupted. "How can a government not control its own people?" "Because humans are not robots," Kelvin responded. "We don't follow orders just because someone gives them. When we heard that distress call, individual humans made individual choices. Every captain decided for themselves. Every crew member agreed or disagreed. That's how human society works. We are independent beings who choose to help each other. But this creates instability," the Quelix ambassador protested. How can other species predict human behavior if humans do not follow central authority? Kelvin smiled, though it was not a happy expression. You can't predict us completely, but you can predict this. If you threaten humans, other humans will respond. Always. That's the one constant you can count on. The council debated for hours, but ultimately took no official action. They couldn't legislate against a species caring about each other, but several species quietly adjusted their policies regarding human territory. The Vraxian Dominion, in particular, issued new orders to all military commanders: avoid conflict with human civilians. The political cost is too high. Thexalar himself wrote a detailed report about the incident. His superiors read it carefully. One section in particular caught their attention. We did not lose to the humans because they had superior weapons or tactics. We lost because they value loyalty to each other more than they value their own survival. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous. Any species considering conflict with humanity must account for this factor. The humans will come, all of them, and they will accept casualties that no other species would tolerate. The report was classified as highly secret, but copies found their way to military academies across the galaxy. Within a year, the incident at Kepler 442b had become a case study in asymmetric warfare. Students analyzed the tactics, the psychology, the political implications, but they all came to the same conclusion. You couldn't replicate what the humans had done. You couldn't order civilians to form a human shield. They had to choose it themselves. And that kind of choice required a bond between individuals that most species simply didn't have. Back on Earth, Jake Morrison accepted a new job at Defense Command Headquarters. His role was to improve emergency response protocols for human outposts. He worked with engineers to develop better distress beacons, with communication specialists to ensure calls for help reached everyone who needed to hear them. But his most important contribution was a simple policy recommendation. Every human station, colony, and outpost should have the same emergency broadcast system, one that sent distress calls on every frequency simultaneously, one that made sure no human would ever face danger alone. We need to make sure everyone can scream as loud as possible when they need help, Jake explained to a committee. Because the one thing I learned out there is that humans will answer. We just need to make sure they hear the call. The policy was adopted and implemented across all human space. Every station got the new emergency system. Every colony installed the updated beacons. And every human ship was equipped to receive distress calls from anywhere. Lisa Grant went back to hauling cargo in the Destiny's Run. Her ship looked the same as before, maybe a bit more worn from the hard burn to Kepler 442b. She never talked much about what happened, preferring to focus on her regular work. But her crew noticed that she always kept the emergency channel open now, always listening just in case. Captain Peter Hughes continued running colony transports. The colonists on New Horizon eventually reached their destination, a few weeks late but safely arrived. Peter never regretted the delay. When people asked him about it, he gave his standard answer: there are more important things than staying on schedule. George Palmer returned to his business ventures, but he noticed a change in how people treated him. Other wealthy individuals who had thought him foolish for risking his family now looked at him with respect. Several of them privately told him they hoped they would have the same courage if faced with a similar choice. His daughter Katie kept the memory of that day for the rest of her life. Years later, when she was grown and captaining her own ship, she would tell people about the time her family went to save strangers at a mining station. "That's when I learned what it really means to be human," she would say. 5 years passed after the incident at Kepler 442b. The galaxy had changed in small but significant ways. Human expansion into new territories continued, but with less resistance than before. Species that might have challenged human settlements now thought twice. The story of over 100 civilian ships responding to a distress call had become legend. But more importantly, it had become warning. Don't threaten humans unless you're prepared for all humans to respond. The Vraxian Dominion maintained its territorial claims, but they established formal borders with human space and respected them. Thexalar, now promoted to admiral, sometimes wondered about those 47 miners who had caused such a diplomatic shift. He had made the right choice that day, he believed. The alternative would have been a war that might have lasted generations. On Earth, Ambassador Kelvin Shaw gave a lecture at the Diplomatic Academy. speaking to young humans who wanted to represent their species among the stars. A student raised her hand during the question period. Sir, some alien species say that what happened at Kepler 442b was a tactical trick. They say we deliberately used civilians as weapons. How do you respond to that? Kelvin thought about his answer carefully. I tell them it wasn't a trick because we didn't plan it. Every ship that responded did so independently. No one ordered them to come. No one asked them to put themselves at risk. They just did it because that's who we are as a species, and I tell them that it will happen again. You mean if another mining station is attacked? I mean anytime any human calls for help. It doesn't matter if it's a mining station or a colony or a single ship stranded in space. If humans hear the call, humans will respond. That's not a military tactic. That's just human nature. And it's the most powerful thing about us. Another student asked a different question. Sir, doesn't that make us vulnerable? If aliens know we'll always respond to distress calls, couldn't they use that against us? They could try, Kelvin admitted. But they would have to be willing to face the consequences. Because yes, we respond to distress calls, but we also remember who caused the distress, and we don't forgive easily. The students nodded, understanding the unspoken threat in those words. Humanity's loyalty to each other was a strength. But it also meant humanity would pursue vengeance against those who hurt their own. In a spaceship repair dock orbiting Mars, Lisa Grant was getting the Destiny's run serviced when she ran into Peter Hughes. They had stayed in touch over the years, meeting occasionally when their routes crossed. They sat in a coffee shop at the dock, watching ships come and go through the large windows. Do you ever think about that day? Peter asked. Sometimes, Lisa said. Mostly I try not to. We got lucky. If that Vraxian commander had been less reasonable, we'd all be dead. But we would have tried anyway, right? Even knowing we might die? Lisa was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, we would have tried anyway. That's the thing that scares me sometimes. We're not rational when it comes to helping each other. We'll do incredibly stupid things if it means not abandoning our own. Is that really stupid, though? Peter asked. I mean, look at what it's accomplished. Human space is expanding faster now than ever before. Other species think twice before challenging us, all because we proved we'll stick together no matter what. Maybe you're right, Lisa said, but I still think about all those people who came. 47,000 humans risked their lives for 47 strangers. That's either the most beautiful thing about our species or the craziest. Why can't it be both? Lisa smiled. I guess it can be. On the colony world of New Terra, Julie Brooks lived with her husband and 2 children. She had been one of the miners rescued from the station. She worked as a teacher now, and every year she told her students about the day over 100 ships came to save her and her fellow miners. I want you to understand something, she would tell each new class. I didn't know the people who saved me. I had never met Captain Lisa Grant or Captain Peter Hughes or any of the other crews, but they came anyway. They risked everything for strangers. That's what being human means. One student always asked the same question year after year. But why did they do it? And Julie always gave the same answer. Because we don't leave each other behind. Ever. The children would think about this, and Julie could see the idea taking root in their young minds. This was how human culture was passed down, not through laws or orders, but through stories that taught values. The story of Kepler 442b had become one of those stories. It taught human children what it meant to be part of their species. Commander Jake Morrison, now promoted to colonel, continued his work improving emergency systems. But he also spent time visiting colonies and outposts, giving talks about safety procedures. During one of these visits, a young miner asked him a question. Sir, what should we do if we're in danger? Should we fight or should we call for help? Jake smiled. Always call for help, always. Even if you think no one will come, even if you think it's hopeless, send that distress call. Because you never know who's listening. You never know who will decide to turn their ship around and come to your aid. But what if they don't come? Then you fight as hard as you can, Jake said. But in my experience, they'll come. Humans always come. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from various species continued to debate the implications of human behavior. A young Quelix diplomat newly assigned to the council asked an older colleague about humans. I've read the reports about Kepler 442b, the young Quelix said. But I don't understand. Why would a species evolve to prioritize group survival over individual survival? It's not logical. The older diplomat made a sound that the translator interpreted as a sigh. You're thinking about this wrong. Humans don't prioritize group survival over individual survival. They prioritize both simultaneously. They want everyone to survive even when it's impossible. That's what makes them dangerous. Dangerous how? Because they'll do impossible things. A rational species calculates odds and makes logical choices. Humans calculate odds and then ignore them if those odds mean abandoning their own. You can't predict that. You can't plan for it. You can only avoid putting humans in a position where they feel they have to respond. So the answer is to leave humans alone. The answer is to never threaten humans unless you're prepared for all of them to respond. And I mean all of them, not just their military, but their civilians too. Their children will fly into danger if it means helping their own. That's not a species you want to fight. The young diplomat thought about this for a long time. Finally, it asked one more question. Do you respect them? The older diplomat considered carefully before answering. I fear them. But yes, I also respect them. Any species that will sacrifice 47,000 lives to save 47 strangers has a strength that most of us lack. It's not the strength of weapons or technology. It's the strength of loyalty, and that kind of strength can move the galaxy. Back on that repaired mining station's replacement, workers continued their jobs extracting resources from asteroids and planets. The new station was better protected with improved defenses and faster ships for evacuation. But it also had something else, a memorial wall listing the names of the 47 miners who had been rescued. And beneath that, the names of all 117 ships that had responded to the distress call. Workers would sometimes stop and read the names. Some of them had served on those rescue ships. Others knew people who had. But all of them understood what the memorial represented. It wasn't just a list of names. It was a promise no human stands alone. No call for help goes unanswered. We are human, and we take care of our own. This was the lesson of Kepler 442b. This was what the galaxy had learned about humanity. They were the Deathworlders, evolved on a brutal planet that should have destroyed them. They were weak compared to many species, their bodies fragile, their technology still developing. But they had something no other species possessed. They had each other. And they would never ever let each other go. Years later, a reporter asked Thexalar about his decision that day. The Vraxian admiral was older now. His scales dulled with age, but his memory was sharp. Do you regret not destroying the mining station when you had the chance? The reporter asked. Thexalar was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised even himself. No, I do not regret it. I learned something important that day. I learned that the strongest weapon isn't always the biggest gun or the fastest ship. Sometimes the strongest weapon is being willing to die for someone you've never met. Humans have that weapon. We do not. Do you think other species could learn it? Perhaps, but it would require changing who we are at our core. Humans are loyal because their death world forced them to be. They survived by protecting each other. The rest of us survived by being stronger or faster or smarter. Different paths led to different species. The human's path led to this, a species that will bring down a fleet with nothing but their willingness to stand together. The story ended there, but the legend continued. In every human colony, on every human ship, the tale was told and retold. They sent a simple SOS and brought down the Deathworlders' fleet. Not through violence, but through something more powerful, through the simple human refusal to abandon their own. And in the cold,